So this video is going to be a testimonial of a couple of the services I've gotten from V.K Jehannum. I'm going to talk about two. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about, but this is a quick video. I'm just going to talk about these two because they're probably the most prevalent, the most impactful of everything that I've done in reference to his work. So I recently got the gift of Algol. I received this a little over a week ago, I want to say. And the reason I wanted to make this video first is because it directly ties and correlates with my experiences performing the Black Alchemy rites of the planets. So I had performed those rites in succession. I think it was over like a 2-day time period. Davina and I performed those. Initially I didn't really notice a whole lot of change, and basic things. I felt a lot more confident than I had prior to performing the rites. But I noticed that I was having to establish my dominance and express myself differently around animals. I had this really weird connection and all these really weird experiences with animals, and learning my place and expressing dominance. Something very primal awakened in me. I remember I had a standoff with a black cat that we have at home. And if anybody knows anything about the ancient beings that live within black cats, you know how intense that can be, dealing with that type of personality. The level of entitlement and, by right, whatever that comes with all that. But the cat, he had been clawing at an open cabinet and got his paw stuck. His claw got stuck. So I came in and I reached for his paw and, tried to help him out, whatever, and he got, excited or whatever, so he immediately started trying to snatch his hand back, yanks his paw back, and rips his claw out. So it's hanging in the bottom of the cabinet. Sorry, there are people surrounding my car right now. But yeah, so he he's obviously in pain, so I go to see if he's alright, whatever. And he's got this really intense low growl, rumbling, whatever. It gets to the point where everything in the house is shaking off of this dude because he's making crazy fucking noises, crazy noises. And all the other cats, we have 4 other cats, they're not fucking with him. They all see it, they all hear him, they get up, they one by one start moving away from him. I tried to touch him, he's dead weight on the floor, he's hissing at me, doing all this shit. So whatever, he punked one of the other cats for walking past him, so I got in his face and he hissed at me, and I hissed back at him. He started making all these noises at me, and I got really loud, and I roared in his face, and he eyes got huge, and he backed up a little bit, got all nice, quiet, sweet, docile. And my relationship with him after that completely changed, because I could tell he didn't really respect me as much prior to this. The same day, I would have a really weird exchange with, I think it was a pit bull. This dog was all over me. She wouldn't leave me alone, she wouldn't stop following me, she wouldn't stop bothering me. She was being watched for a friend of ours. Another friend was house sitting for him, taking care of his puppy, and she was all over me. So whatever, long story short, that's how it started. My day-to-day life, I have had a lot of encounters where I've been put to the test to be able to express and assert myself, and typically I give myself reason to not even bother or give anything energy or embellish or whatever the reason. But more recently, I feel I've had a lot more balance in my masculine and feminine energy, because whatever masculine energy I do possess, I feel I've learned ways to suppress it channel it in ways that are inappropriate. So performing these rites really helped me get into alignment with how that energy was being expressed. And then on top of all of that, when I was doing a lot of deep research into my transiting aspects on my natal chart, I started learning all these different ways that I can activate all of these placements on my chart. And when I activated them, it was like an initiation process. A whole bunch of things kickstarted in my life, magically, spiritually, and physically. So fast forward now. I'm gonna skip past a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said, I want to try to keep this short. I'm already over my limit. But so significant levels of empowerment and alignment. I already work with stones. I already work with the stars. I already work with the planets. When I perform those rites, everything fell into sync for me. All my studies, things that I felt like I was reaching an impasse with, so many things started coming full circle. So many things started making sense. So many things that I realized I was wasting time and wasting energy on, I just abandoned completely. As far as magic goes and being able to like create my creative expression, I was kind of like feeling like it was dwindling. I really couldn't actualize the things I was really trying to, and I started to see very clearly how I can pull inspiration from all sorts of things, or how my environment is communicating certain things to me through spiritual contact. So that became a lot more clear, a lot more prevalent. I was much more aware of like my psychic ability and the levels of which that actually exists, and my ability to be able to help people and perceive and read them on contact. So now, the gift of Algol. So I completely put off that VK was going to be performing this rite over me, and I was just exhausted. I went to bed earlier than I normally would have. I completely forgot about the whole thing. I had some crazy fucking dreams, like really, really, really intense, like really vivid dreams. And I remember like so much was happening, but I remember like it felt like I was in space, and I was in the middle of like a meteor shower, like fire was just raining past me. And then I went from the perspective of being like amidst it to being above the whole thing and looking down at these like meteors like cascading over the planet. Then I could see these 3 stars like elliptically moving around each other, but from a distance they looked like one star. And it was like the closer and closer I was getting to these stars, I was like flying towards them, they started to look like 3 stars. And then my perspective changed, and it was like I was the 3 stars, and each one was like a different like eye of mine that I was using. A bunch of other stuff happened. I don't really remember. That's fine. I'm gonna take these off real quick. So now performing ritual, I noticed that my ability, my endurance has greatly increased. Like the amount of time that I can chant and the amount of time that I can just like, I guess, be engaged is a lot. It's a lot more focused. Like in general, my focus feels a lot more attuned to whatever it is that I set out, to get done, to accomplish. Like once I kind of get into that, I kind of like tune out, and it was a lot easier for me to get distracted or like give into like noise, mind chatter and things like that. But I noticed that I'm tuning out. Another thing I've noticed is in situations where I have to be like assertive and expressive now, I know where to pull things from within to take care of myself, to protect myself. I guess there's like a level like of cruelty that comes with being assertive. You know what I'm saying? Me being able to express that in a way I feel is healthy for me and appropriate for me, and I don't feel like, bad about it or anything like that. I feel like that's something I've noticed more recently. And then being able to absorb information. I know this is probably the most prevalent thing at this point in time. Like when I'm coming in contact, making spiritual contact, or I am reading information, or I am reassessing something that I've experienced, my ability to be able to process things and to see things from like a different view, I guess like a wider perspective, has vastly encompassed this whole different field and range of perspective. As far as, it's really hard to put all these things in the words. Like, I really don't know how to put a lot of this shit in the words. All I can say is that I noticed some changes. I noticed a lot of things work, and I feel significantly more powerful. I feel a lot more confident in what I'm doing, and I'm definitely getting a lot more responses than I have been. A lot more. Like, my ability to be able to see and identify when lessons are being communicated to me are completely, it's just completely different. For one, I don't receive and personalize messages the way that I have been up until this point, which I feel is very helpful for what I'm doing, because it's more objective and less subjective, and I don't feel so attached to everything. So I feel very much liberated. I feel very much empowered, and I feel like a lot of force behind anything I say and do. But I'll keep everybody updated, and I'll be making more videos going more in depth about all the various workings that I've been undergoing, and all of the work and material of VKs that I've worked with, and I've had some really great results. So I highly recommend it. He's easy to work with. I've been keeping up with him for a while. You know, I'm friends with him. Obviously, a lot of you might know that, but been keeping up with his work for a while, even prior to us exchanging and knowing who each other's physical names are here. But for the longest time, I identified with how certain people come into your life to initiate you, to change you, to catalyze something in your life, whether it be to empower you, disempower you, scare you, whatever the fuck it is, right? And VK is very grounded in what it is that he believes and why he believes what he believes. Nothing he says and nothing that he does is not done without reason, and is always supported with evidence, material, all sorts of things. Experience, which, gnosis and experience for me is probably the biggest thing before I work with anybody. So, I've gotten very good responses from everything that he's given to us, that I've just tried, I've experimented, I've implemented into my own workings, and all the spirits, they adore him. They love his work. It's always recommended, so I strongly recommend it. There's a link to his Patreon and his YouTube channel in the description below. Support him on Patreon. Please read his terms. Please read his services before you ask questions. No one likes to repeat themselves. This is why we take the time to do these things. Know what it is that you want, aside from the things that, he is offering. I feel as if, to be respectful of each other's time, knowing what we want before we approach magicians and people who offer services, and this high level of energy is very important, because we don't want to take up too much of each other's time or energy, especially in a time period like this. It's all about learning how to take care of ourselves so that we can be fully expressive in our ability to take care of each other too, the planet.